Hey everyone, and welcome to the Dan Show. We've got a bunch of great topics for you today. We're going to go through the whole set here. We're going to go through vMix, cameras, everything today. We're also going to talk about
merge messages. We're going to talk a little bit about merge messages, how they work. Some record stats and other interesting stuff about them.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover today, so let's get into it. All right, so we're going to start off by talking about the set here. We've got this lovely table done by Nick Heavy, Callanan in Logistics. It's got some integrated lighting, and it's got everything that we need right here on the table. So I guess the first thing that we got here is our laptops. They are all connected via HDMI. They go all the way back to the computer. I get a lot of questions about the mic arms. I don't know the exact brand of them, but I do know that they're from wheelchairs. So if you have a wheelchair or something like that, and you need to hold something next to your mouth or like have an availability there, this kind of clicks on. It's rotatable. It's got this nice little locking plug there, and it's flexible and they're quite strong. So they're more non-traditional. They're kind of non-standard, but they're really kind of nice for a nice solid mounting. They do have the tendency to droop a little bit. These mics are very heavy, but that's probably about it for the mic stands. They come in different kind of girths, I guess, and they've got a standard thread on the end. And then this like ball detent. You can't rotate them, but you can pull them up. If I can do this. There we go. So you can see on the mounting attachment here, there's a bunch of like individual holes for these ball detents on the bottom. So you can kind of get them set in, and then they don't rotate, and then they click in really nice like that. Our microphones here are the Electro Voice RE20s. So these have less of a near field effect. So when you're getting close to it or you're kind of farther away, the sound doesn't change too much. It's a bit of a cross up between the SM7B and the RE20, and SM basically just like a different brand of the S. So these are kind of a bit nicer. Yeah, they're both a dynamic microphone, so they've got a little bit of a lower output than something like a condenser. They don't pick up so much room noise or any crosstalk between the two guys. Headphones here are the ATH-M50X by Audio-Technica.
Don't Luke and Linus hate these?
They're kind of, they're okay. They're okay. They get a little bit tiring after you've been wearing them for like 5 hours, but otherwise they sound fine, and the monitoring's like not too bad. Yeah, a pair of Stream Decks here, so this is where Linus and Luke control everything. We'll kind of go through what the buttons do a little bit later when we move into vMix completely. The lighting here on the table is RGB, and it's completely controlled over Bluetooth with an iPad app. It's got a whole bunch of different modes. We can go like RGB puke, take up the brightness, and we do that. There we go. Yeah, so they're pretty intense. We can increase the speed too. There we go. That's a WAN show. I wish we did it all like this. Yeah, that's great. Oh wow, that's bright. Turn that down.
Hello. This is the voice of the cat. Hmm. What is going on? Oh.
Right, so we used to also use the iPad to control a couple of Titan tubes that we had at the back, but they were kind of dark. If you look at like last year or even like a few months ago before I installed these, the red and blue were kind of dim. So we use these new, they're really bright. These are like outdoor, I guess 80 watt rated LED lights, RGB, that I think we bought them for the way.
Okay, so basically this is the first time I'm doing a YouTube stream, and since I'm a cat, I have no idea what I'm doing. Hmm. Don't know why you are lagging. Why? YouTube said 6800. How about now? Is it the computer? Oh, damn it.
LAN, and I stole a couple. Well, I stole 4 to throw here. Due to the power outage we had, I guess back in December, everything now has jackeries supporting it. So there's a jackery just for these backlights, and there's also a jackery up there for the China ball and aperture. This background is eventually going to get replaced with some new products that we're developing. I'm not entirely sure I'm supposed to talk about them, but you'll see that. Obviously they're covered in wrinkles. I'm so sorry. We'll get that fixed eventually. Just the fabric is really difficult to kind of, because it's foam, so it doesn't sit particularly well. What else we got? We got our Secret Labs chairs. This is something that we don't get to show off too often just because they never use the side cameras. We got a whole bunch of like weird set deck things over here. These are some Philips Hue LED bulbs, which are controlled with a little controller on the desk there. We'll go through.
Wow, these look like some old school bulbs.
Yeah, they've kind of had a big resurgence with these like more aesthetic LED things. Instead of just like providing light, they provide a bit of ambience and set deck, that sort of thing. Behind we have our halo lights. They're wasps. They're kind of more just stuff we had lying around. Wanshow gets the stuff that we have lying around, unfortunately. Let's dump under the desk and I'll show you the sort of cable management.
Oh wow.
It's better than it was, but it's still not as great as I think it could be.
My audio.
I've got this really nice 8-channel snake by Mogomi. So this is just basically a single 8 channels that go directly back to the computer. Oh, cameras. These are the C200. Again, the 3 of these were just ones that we had laying around. They're probably a little bit overkill for like a podcast set. I think the bodies of these are like a few $1,000s, but they're not quite as intense as some of our Sony products that we have. Yeah, so we got 3 of those. These are just kind of to prevent a little bit of extra spill from the China ball. They connect via HDMI back to the computer. And I think that's about everything we've got here. We've got a grid up here that needs to be a little bit more finished off, but that'll allow us to mount a whole bunch more stuff if we ever need to. And on the ceiling, I guess we've got those Elgato sound panels, which don't really do much in this room, unfortunately.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we got Linus's head. This is all like the extra stuff that we have. And this is my office, I guess. So I've got my stream decks. This is our audio system.
Hello, 1, 2,
Computers
3,
here.
1, 2, 3.
Don't look at the
How's the
cable
audio
management
now?
under the desk. No.
Hello.
There was
1, 2,
supposed
3,
to
1,
be
2,
some
3.
extra
How's the
work where we
audio
routed
now?
a whole bunch of cables through this fake wall. and unfortunately that didn't end up happening. So, so yeah, it's just going to sit down there and be.
Hello, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. How's the
Here's the controller for
audio
the
now?
Philips Hue. You know, you just
Can you guys hear me? Meow.
However, they were before, which is useful. Coming and turning everything on is basically push a couple buttons and it's all done. This is my microphone, so it's similar to those, but I have my inline preamp here. Because these are a dynamic microphone, the output of them is a lot lower than something like a condenser. And so we can use an inline preamp to bump that level up without introducing a whole bunch of noise. They're very, very similar to a cloud lifter, but I think they're about half the cost, and they're also way smaller, and so much so that you can kind of have it attached to your mic directly instead of having this big box kind of somewhere else and having to use two cables. The two for the WAN show set are hidden underneath, so we are using those kind of two cables. So go snake, inline preamp, and then directly into the microphone.
No?
You can't use them with condensers because they need phantom power, 48 volts, to like actually function. Okay. So our microphones come into the audio rack. Linus and Luke go into this AFX compeller, and what this is it's a automatic gain leveling system. So unlike a traditional gain control system, this one, if there's silence, it doesn't continue to bring the level up to like incredible high volumes, and then they start talking and then it ducks, so the noise floor stays where it needs to be. There's basically a gate on the voltage controlled amplifier that controls the level of the gain, and it's really, really fast because it's pretty much completely analog. There's no plugins or anything you need. It's just kind of 2-channel in, 2-channel out. That allows me to kind of prevent Linus from clipping, because sometimes he screams, and when you're about halfway through the WAN show and people are tired, you know, you're not on that extreme on style of existing that he kind of maybe is at the start of the show. Yeah, so that's 2 channels. So I've got Linus and Luke here. Conrad, if you want to go tap one of the mics, maybe we can see it like functioning. There you go. So we've got our input here, and we can sort of switch between that and then also the gain reduction. So you can see it's kind of holding that, and there's like an attack and delay and release. And then you can also sort of adjust how much silence is required for that noise gate to trigger. And then if you stop, you can see that has popped on, and now it's holding that amount of gain reduction where it was at the last step, so that noise floor doesn't come up and go crazy. And then that loops in through the rest of this rack. We've got this patch bay here, and so all of our inputs and outputs are kind of normal together. So if I do have to make a change, I can come in and patch it, but most of the time it just stays completely static. We've got a bit of a map here at the top. So our microphone ties come in through the top left here, and then they are completely brought through into the octopre here at the bottom. So the microphones are in here, 1 through 8, and then the ties back down to the octopre are underneath them, right? So they're always connected together. It's like a physical patch. This is our octopre, so this is our, I'm using this as a preamp and inline compressor. So the microphone comes through into the octopre, and then it's looped out into the AFX, right? Because we have to provide 48 volt phantom power to the inline preamps. So it comes in through the octopre. If we have a guest and I need to monitor that, but I don't want it in Linus and Luke's headphone mix, because there's a whole bunch of delay. Channel A is pretty much just direct mic monitoring, so there's no latency whatsoever. Otherwise it makes it really difficult to like talk. Yeah, so the headphone outputs are this side, and then they go to the headphone extensions, which go to the table and also my side here on the floor. So that's kind of the audio thing. These two are connected via an ADAT, which is optical. So this can accept like 8 additional channels. Let's have a look at my computer next, I guess. So Focusrite gives you control panel, so you can see our 8 channels of ADAT here, which are
Hello,
the
guys.
those are the octopre inputs, and then analog 1, 2 are the
Oppa
inputs
Gangnam
from the compeller.
Style.
So I don't necessarily have to use the compeller. It's digitally routed into the chain via analog, you know. And then my playback 1 through 10 are at the bottom here. So I have 2 submixes, monitor outputs 1, 2 go to
Hello.
the headphone mixes, and then line output 3,
Hello,
4
my
goes to
name
the
is
submix in the headphone
Meow.
splitter. And so if I need to adjust my submix here, I can like mute different sections, or I can mute my microphones. All the microphones are muted, and so I'm just kind of monitoring my playback that way. So that's our
God
into
damn
the
it.
computer. After the Focusrite, it then goes into this really
This is
awesome
so
little
stupid.
program called ASIO Link Pro. ASIO is an audio transport protocol that's like extremely low latency. It does require some level of exclusivity, and so because we use 3 or 4 different programs, I don't want them to take exclusive control over the Focusrite. So we use ASIO Link Pro as like a middleman. So ASIO gets full exclusivity, and then it can route it wherever it needs to be in through like digital data channels. It's kind of like Voicemeter or Voicemeter Banana, but like a little bit more free in how you want to route it. So my ASIO routing layer is kind of a bit more complicated. ASIO has like basically 4 microphone inputs, if you want to think about it that way, or destinations that I can send to. So Reaper here, the output 1, 2 is set to one of the ASIO outputs. And so that kind of comes in here, 1, 2, which then I can route somewhere else. And then the ones along the bottom are the out mixes, which, because it's hooked into the Focusrite, are kind of like the Focusrite line outputs. This is where it gets really complicated, I'm so sorry. And my submix B, I have the output from Reaper sending through main mix 1, 2 up here into output 3, 4, and then that also goes into Avid Mix Pros for 8-channel outputs, 1, 2, and 1, 2, probably just because I don't really use them. It's another destination they can go. If, say, I wanted to send it to a remote guest, I can use one of these as a speaker destination. So I can set my microphone input on, like, say, Discord or something like that into output 1, 2. So they can hear what I can hear on 3, 4, and also hear what I'm outputting at the computer at the top of 1, 2, right? So it's kind of, it's one destination, but it's also 2 destinations, and that's what ASIO Link Pro lets me do. So this line up here is my direct microphone inputs, and what I can do is I can send them into the ASIO host mix. So now we're going from the Scarlett, which is here, into ASIO's kind of mic inputs. So in Reaper, like digital input 7 and 8 would be digital input 7 and 8 here. So I'm coming in analog 1, 2 from the compeller. So compeller to the Scarlett in analog 1, 2, and then I'm routing 1 and 2 over to 7 and 8. So that's now my ASIO Link microphone inputs, and so input 7 and 8 are arriving here. Digital 10 is going to be from the octopre, which is my microphone, and that's just directly brought down. Because it's an ADAT input, it's like actually input 20, which can get really confusing when I'm like, whoa, what is it? I don't know. I have the Avid Pro speaker out just basically directly routed all the way down. So Reaper's output on channel 1, 2 goes directly to playback 1, 2. I have that muted in the A-Mix for Linus and Luke, but it's available for me to listen to if I want to in sort of playback 1, 2. Okay, so we've gone from analog into the Focusrite, so the computer in Focusrite control, and then we're going from the Scarlett over ASIO into ASIO Link Pro, and then that goes into Reaper. So Reaper kind of just has 4 channels at the moment. You can see here we've got, this will be Linus's mic, we've got Luke's mic, and then we've got my mic over here, the producer mic. And those...
Okay, house Okay, let's do one thing first. How's my audio now? Hello? Yes. Is it okay? No, okay. Louder, but echo. Okay, echo. What to do about the echo? Okay, let's see. Is there echo now? Is there echo now? Okay, the echo gets worse when the video play. Okay, let's see, try. Wait, now just my voice is the echo? Okay, so there's no net echo now. Right, so um, let's see. Now? Okay, so again, no echo for my voice, huh?
Those are kind of just like raw from the computer. So analog 1, 2 from the compeller. All of those go to our main channel, which has an output to 1, 2, which then goes into vMix.
Now is
this
the echo?
has a bunch of different effects on it. So we'll come over here. I don't know if you can see that okay. So my chain is basically a master chain rather than doing any individual.
Now there's echo.
We start with a compressor, and then we have a slightly.
I need you to tell me what is again.
This is just some more free plugins.
Is there echo now?
Like trail dynamic system as well. So I didn't want to use a gate because it can be a little bit harsh.
What audio is perfect?
Difficult
Which
to
one?
like control the attack timing, especially when you have two people talking over each other and some strange pauses. And I wanted to keep the noise floor down as much as possible. So the nice thing about Reaper's built-in like dynamic thing is you can set a custom roll-off. So as
Okay, what about the video?
stop talking, it doesn't make it necessarily
background
silent, but it just makes it a little bit quieter.
of
So
what we are
when that
watching.
noise floor comes up and you can
Is
kind
it
of
too
hear more
loud
of the room
or
tone,
okay
it's
now?
not as offensive, right? And it's got a bit of decay you can see on there. And then we just basically go into a limiter. So it keeps everything at -1, which is kind of like your main standard. I would like to implement some more real-time mastering stuff, or at least balance the levels to kind of master for Spotify and the rest of the platforms in real time. The problem with doing like a live thing like this without writing faders or doing a proper master is the levels don't really match. So Spotify, maybe our podcast is a lot quieter than the other ones. Most platforms like YouTube and Spotify and all of those like iTunes Musics and that sort of thing have a mastering standard of -1 decibels full scale, and then -14 loudness units full scale LUFS, which is kind of
Man.
a measure over time about how loud an entire piece is, if you want to think that way. So that'll happen sometime. Another future Dan problem.
Okay, good. All right,
Okay,
let's
so now we're in, oh yeah, the bleep button as well. So there's another channel here, which is the bleep sound. That's channel 4, which plays constantly. So it's constantly playing that bleep tone in the background,
Okay,
but
so
it's muted. So we'll talk about how
so
that functions a little bit later.
what we
And
are watching
finally,
is
we're into vMix here.
uh,
The nice thing
uh,
about doing it this way is when we're
basically
in
a
vMix, we
1-hour
only have
video of a
2
live
channels
stream
of audio that come in.
set
So
up
we don't have
from
to do any processing, and we don't have to do
Wine
any
Show
processing in
for
vMix.
Linus Tech
We don't have to
Tips
worry
YouTube
about adding
channel.
plugins. We don't have to worry about making sure the levels are right, because that's all handled in Reaper, and then we just send in our final mix. So it's kind of like a pre-mix, and then we have our final output. vMix is nice because it allows for a secondary routing channel if we go audio outputs. So my headphone output is speakers 03, which is what you can kind of see over here on 3.4. So for me, I have basically 3 choices for routing. I can monitor the direct microphone inputs from Luke and Linus and myself, so no latency and hearing exactly what's being recorded. My second choice is to monitor the direct output from Reaper, which allows me to make sure that my plugins are working, and then kind of all of that is just one output. And my third option is to monitor what
Okay, the
vMix is
star of the
outputting
show is
through
here.
the secondary headphone mix. And because I only have one mix, I have to use the second one here. So I just mute Reaper output, and I can listen to vMix's output. Because you can see it adds a bit of latency there. And so it becomes really difficult to like monitor in real time if I'm just monitoring vMix's output. And then, yeah, I guess that's basically the entire audio chain. Is that simple enough for you? One of the reasons why it's so complicated is the versatility. You know, if we were just doing all of this in OBS or all of this in vMix internally, I wouldn't have the option to have so many places to monitor and for so many places of like fine-tune adjustment or control. I mean, this is pretty simple routing. It's just kind of like 2 inputs into another 2 inputs into another 2 inputs, but it gives me a place in the chain to like insert effects or like make modifications, and the less plugins I can use, the more the computer is stable and the more kind of fast and responsive it is, and the more resources I have to like deal with video processing or like actually doing the streaming, because it's kind of all one system. It's also nice having physical buttons like here, so if Linus is a bit too loud, I can just tweak him down a bit. I haven't touched these in a long time. It's kind of designed to be set and forget, so I don't have to be sitting here. Somebody else who has very little training can come down, they open Reaper, they open vMix, and then everything is good to go. It's basically 2 programs and you're done. That's kind of the other reason why it's so complicated in the back end to make it simple in the front end. You kind of have to go more complicated to make it more simple. vMix next, I guess, from the video side of things. vMix is pretty neat in that you can have like an obscene quantity of inputs. So in vMix, I have all of these. So currently, I think there's about 84 simultaneous inputs, and these are all handled directly in video memory. So if I open up my task view here, you can see I'm running a RTX A4000, which has 16 gigs of GPU memory. Currently, there's about 4 gigs of VRAM used in this project. When we were doing some more of the 4K stuff for Dennis's integrations, it got up to like 10 or 11 gigs of VRAM, and there wasn't like enough to do recording or streaming at the same time, so we were getting a bit of hiccups. Like 4K MOV files uncompressed with transparency uses a lot of VRAM, especially if they're held constantly. So if you're going to be using vMix, it's really GPU intensive, and unless your set is as complicated as this, you probably don't need an A4000. I used to run a 2080 Super. 2080 Super was my old card.
Can you hear me?
This computer has an i9 10980XE, which is a bunch of gibberish words, 36 core. Completely, absolutely unnecessary, but it runs 4-channel memory.
Can
vMix
you still hear me?
is a fun beast. The nice thing about it is it has every single kind of built-in function that you would need already in it. Like you don't have to have any plugins that might cause performance issues or crash. vMix from the get-go has always been focused on 100% stability. So I have, touch wood, I have never had a crash with vMix, and I've been using it for like, I guess 9 years now, and it's never failed on me. And I guess that's great, even with like hundreds of inputs. It supports 1,000 inputs as well as 1,000 simultaneous NDI camera inputs, which is nuts. I don't know who has the internet bandwidth to use that much, but it's pretty crazy. It can be a little bit difficult to get your head around how to structure
Okay,
a
so
set
you
like
can
this.
hear me, but you can't
It's
see
also
me right
applicable
now.
to
Damn it.
OBS. Like you would
Shit.
do it, I would do it in the same way, just to kind of minimize work. So we kind of have our raw cams that come in here. So there's our raw cam from the wide cam. We've got Linus's camera, and then we've got Luke's camera. We've also got their laptops, and then Reaper audio, and then merge message lower banner. And then we have our first kind of like combination. I want to keep this banner open all the time, but I don't want to have to make 700 different versions of this with all my possible inputs, right? So I want to have, this is my broadcast image, and then I want to be able to change things underneath it, which kind of makes everything easier down the road. So this has a few multi-layers in it. So it's got a virtual
Okay,
mix,
now the
which
camera
is
has a problem
kind of
cutting.
like another set of different cameras, and then we have the lower banner, and then we have
Shit.
another browser source over here, which we'll talk about a bit later. So this is kind of our main thing, and when I switch the cameras underneath, right, I'm switching between wide, Linus, and Luke. The browser source and everything that I've done to it stays right there. That's kind of my favorite way to do it. This is done with a virtual camera mix. So vMix allows for 4 sub-stream mixes, which can also all be output simultaneously. So it's kind of obscenely powerful in that way. So the one that you're watching on stream is kind of mix number 1 for video. And then mix 2 and 3 can be either used
How
for
about
other
now?
things or sent to other destinations. Something that we wanted to plan or like play with would be multi-camera simultaneous streams to Floatplane. So you could pick which camera you wanted to watch, like live on Floatplane. I think that's been talked about a little bit. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. And so
Can you see me
our
and hear me
submix,
now?
what our buttons on the Stream Deck do here is they actually change the input into mix 2, right? They change the input into mix 2, and then I use mix 2 in the camera only set so that I have one input
Oh, no wonder
into
I
my kind of
can't see your
final
messages
output.
because
So
it
it's
was showing
this
top
kind of
chats,
live
not
combined,
live
right?
chat.
It's just the
God
one,
damn
but I can still change it, and it's a submix powering a final mix. So if I want to add something to the main output, all I have to do is add another button to change it in the submix, and then I don't have to touch anything else. The other nice thing about using a submix is my color correction is all done directly in the final output. So instead of making a change, say, in the wide cam, right? I want to do color correction here. Now I have to duplicate that color correction to this one and this one, but when you use submixes like this, you can just apply color correction to like every single camera simultaneously. And then if you want to make a change, it's in one place. That's kind of the idea. Make a change, you only have to do it once ever. It makes it faster. I can do it live. I don't have to futz about, all that sort of stuff. Ping is our kind of a software that we use to do like remote calls. So it's basically very similar to Discord, but the nice thing about Ping is you can get a direct link to your guest as like a browser source, and then we can add that directly to OBS or vMix without having to like screen record or screen capture. It's just You just throw it in there and it's great. Same with the audio. That's just basically, that's another one in here. So our guest audio, like you would set your speaker in Discord to one of these inputs, like 3.4, and then you can bring that into
Hello.
vMix
Why
by
lagging now?
grabbing one of the digital outputs as well. And the same thing you would kind of use for a voice meter or anything like that. And then we have our pop-up banner. We've got our picture-in-picture. So this is another thing that we can do, is we can add our multi-view here of our like camera thumbnail, but then we can just move it somewhere else. So right, it's down here in the corner, right? So that's our like complete submix.
Let's see. Okay. Audio bitrate is the current audio stream. Oh, no, my only viewer disappeared, and I have no one-to-one whether anything I'm doing is working or not.